Thanks to the T-virus, Raccoon City was reduced to a wasteland full of zombies and bioweapons, with only a handful of survivors making it out alive. The city was soon nuked, and all evidence of Umbrella's involvement was lost. During the course of the first 3 games, the T-virus was responsible for all the destruction that took place. But where was ground zero for the outbreak? More importantly, who started the outbreak? Well, stick around and find out. So the T-virus, or tyrant virus, is a strain of virus that was developed by Umbrella co-founder James Marcus. In 1966, on an expedition in Africa, Marcus, along with his colleagues Oswald Spencer and Edward Ashford, discovered a flower that produced the progenitor virus, which had properties that could improve a human's DNA and potentially make them superhuman. Then they created the Wesker Project, which the virus was to be used to create super soldiers for the military. So they invented the Umbrella Corporation as a front to fund the virus research. On the surface, the corporation dealt with healthcare and other medical applications, but behind closed doors, it would be used to conduct unethical experimentation. The progenitor virus was used for the Wesker Project, and the research was split between 2 facilities. Edward Ashford would do the research in Europe, as James Marcus and Oswald Spencer would conduct research in America. Spencer used a lab deep beneath the Arklay Mountains for his research, with a mansion covering up its entrance. As tension grew between Spencer and Ashford, both highly competing with their research, Spencer orchestrated an outbreak at the European lab, resulting in Ashford dying from infection. By 1978, the research was going nowhere at the Arklay lab, leading Spencer to abandon the research on his strain and have Ashford's research on the virus stolen. James Marcus reached a breakthrough shortly after with a strain he dubbed the tyrant virus, or T-virus. This virus was created when he spliced the progenitor virus with leech DNA. When it was used on a human test subject, the T-virus would cause aggressive behavior, cannibalistic tendencies, and loss of intelligence, and eventually increased necrosis of the flesh. With his 2 protégés, William Birkin and Albert Wesker, yes, Wesker was a protege, and yes, his name was Wesker, as in the Wesker Project. But that's a different story. Anyway, so they were ordered to have Marcus killed, and after his death, his body was disposed of with the queen leech he was experimenting on. The leech began feeding off his body and eventually gained his memories, believing that it itself was actually James Marcus. Research was then handed over to William Birkin, one of Marcus's protégés, who continued the T-virus research at the Arklay facility. Birkin spliced a strain of Ebola virus with the T-virus, making it highly contagious and enhancing its ability to turn people into zombies. In 1981, unsatisfied with the calculated effectiveness of the virus, Spencer had Birkin's team splice a human egg with reptilian DNA using the T-virus. This resulted in the creation of the Hunter, one of Umbrella's first bioorganic weapons, which was intended to be dropped into a war zone during combat. After that, the T-virus was mass-produced and given to both facilities for new bioorganic weapon development. The development of a new bioorganic weapon occurred in the late 80s in that of the Tyrant Project, in which Umbrella attempted to create a more intelligent super soldier capable of following orders. However, research concluded that most humans lacked the proper DNA to successfully bond with the T-virus, and the search for the right test subject continued. Almost a decade later, in 1998, in another Umbrella facility deep beneath Raccoon City called the Hive, Birkin's team was successful in creating the Licker, which is a surgically altered Crimson Head, a mutated zombie which is stronger and faster. So with all this considered, and yes, I did get off topic, who released the virus into the mansion in the first game? In May of 1998, Birkin's team was hard at work creating the Tyrant. The Tyrant was a super soldier with limited intelligence, which was going to be mass-produced if testing went well. Ultimately, they found a decent test subject for the Tyrant Project in Sergei Vladimir, one of Umbrella's high-ranking officials. So they proceeded to clone him and use the clones for the Tyrant Project. During the surgery on the Tyrant, the Arklay lab was attacked by James Marcus, or just the essence of him, which was now pretty much a giant leech. The outbreak occurred when an airborne pathogen of the T-virus was released from an additional heart created for the tyrant to increase its blood flow. All staff were required to wear containment suits, as though they thought they had the outbreak contained. But the virus quickly consumed those working in the underground lab, and not long after, everyone occupying the mansion as well. A few days after the incident, the virus spread outside the Spencer mansion via a pack of Cerberus that escaped captivity. "That's zombie dogs to the uninitiated!" The first reported zombie-related killing happened a day later when one of the groundskeepers of the mansion killed and ate a coworker. By then, the facility was officially lost. A couple weeks later, the first known civilian death occurred in the forest on the outskirts of Raccoon City. The Raccoon police determined the young woman who was found partially eaten and dismembered was killed by a bear, given the state her body was found in. And then more similar deaths would soon follow, changing the reasoning from animal attack to murder by another person. In late July, with no leads into the case, Police Chief Brian Irons consented to the deployment of a special unit called STARS to the Arklay Mountains to investigate the murders. This mission, of course, was put into motion by Albert Wesker, who was playing both sides as the STARS Alpha Team captain. He received orders from Umbrella to lure the STARS team to the mansion to act as test subjects for their latest experiments, which leads into the first game. And if you want to go further down the line, after the mansion incident, Raccoon City quickly became overrun when rats carrying the T-virus went around town biting citizens. This was the result of what happened with William Birkin and the sewers, but again, that's another story. So, there you have it. The Queen Leech, as it was called, was responsible. As revenge for killing him, James Marcus, or actually a leech thinking it was James Marcus, set in motion the events that would lead to the mansion incident. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this was informative, and I'll see you on the next one.